This is Veterans News Radio, getting to the heart of Veterans Affairs. A program dedicated to unveiling the truth in a relentless pursuit of justice on behalf of veterans. Coming to you live from Rhode Island to the world with your host, High Speed Sal.
Welcome back to Veterans News Radio right here on WNRI. It's Christmas week, so I want to start tonight's show by wishing everybody a Merry Christmas. We've got a few things to talk about. Unfortunately, this week we don't have a guest, but Christmas week, everybody's doing this stuff with families and what have you. However, there's one thing that I want to touch upon, which comes close to home for me, is VA, the VA bonus program that they have. I guess last year was like this past year is like $142 million that they gave out. And of course, they keep on yelling at us saying that they keep on getting their funds cut and they can't help us as veterans. Seems a little weird how $142 million wouldn't help quite a few people. What's your thought, Dennis?
Well, it seems like bonuses are given out every year, whether it be the VA, whether it be to big corporations, banks, and since the bailouts of 2008, they call them retention bonuses now rather than it seems the VA is more focused on who they can pay off and what they can do rather than worry about their own scandals internally.
Right, but $142 million. I mean, this was actually published in USA Today. And during the scandals and everything else, everyone still continued getting their bonus. We're talking about managers, executives, and what have you. And
But if you remember rightly, we're also not getting a cost of living increase this year either.
Oh, we're not?
No.
I didn't know that.
Because the feds wanted to see more rate increase before
they're giving it to
Social
Social Security, though. I could have sworn.
I don't know if they're getting that. No, nobody's getting a COLA this year.
Oh, that's cool. Well, then again, what's COLA? 1-2%? I mean, come on, seriously. Like, that's going to do a lot. I might be able to maybe clean one toenail with that. It's ridiculous. But anyway, there's another gentleman. We're going to have him on later on. His name's Jamie. We'll have him not today, later on, but later on in other shows. And he's put together a study already that since those scandals with people waiting to get into the VA for health care, it's actually doubled since Mr. McDonald's taken over the VA. Nobody's been fired. People have just been transferred. And people are still waiting a long, long time. They can't even get into the system. There's something wrong with that. But yet they're still paying out money. They're doling out this money. And God forbid anybody who wants to get a claim. I understand that Lejeune just did something. They're doing something for Lejeune as well, where they're turning around and they'll say they'll treat certain illnesses, but they're not going to agree to compensate for them.
Correct. Well, the VA and the Department of Defense just released their new statistics for 2015, and they are now allowing veterans that served at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina from 1950, specifically January 1st, 1957 to December 31st, 1987. This is from the Department of Veterans Affairs website. There's 15 base symptoms or illnesses, as they were, that can be listed now through the VA. However, it does not cover disability compensation. According to their website, it says, at this time, there is insufficient scientific and clinical evidence to establish a presumptive association between service at Camp Lejeune during the period of water contamination and the development of certain diseases. However, it applies to health care, but not disability. Speaking of that, it's just more money that goes to these people that cleanups. And according to the Marine Corps' website, the Marine Corps is in good steward of the environment and remains committed to the ongoing environmental efforts associated with Camp Lejeune historic drinking water, and continues to ensure that our policies and ongoing environmental efforts continue to protect our community and the environment. I mean, they've got this list of 15 covered conditions, and yet they're not compensable through veterans health care? It makes no sense to me.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, but in a kind of a way, in a stupid way it does, because that's how the VA handles things.
You know, while we're on the topic of veterans health care and money that's been doled out, I came across a document, again from the VA's website, from the War-Related Illnesses Clinic.
Oh yeah, that wonderful place where they put you up in a nice suite, and then they lie to you face to face afterwards when they send you a letter.
Well, this article is in relation to burn pits. Now, those of our listeners that don't know what burn pits are, between the first Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan, there have been what is called burn pits, where soldiers, airmen, seamen, Marines have burnt their unusable uniforms, their trash, their human feces, you know, stuff that, I mean, obviously you're not going to make a new dump in the middle of your base, so they send them to the burn pit and burn it. And there's a lot of health effects coming up from people breathing this in. I mean, even with their mop gear on and their gas masks on, a lot of these guys are even out there with just dust masks on. And I don't mean just guys. I mean, there's females involved in burn pits as well. You know, and the VA recognizes that burn pits are becoming a problem. However, just yesterday, on Tuesday, the burn pits were dropped from the 2016 research list from the War-Related Illnesses Clinic, according to the Congressional Subcommittee hearing on funding. The medical research budget for 2015 was $247.5 million, and since 1992 they've received over $13 billion, with a B, billion dollars. Why did this get dropped? It just got introduced in 2015. Now in 2016 they're dropping it?
Too much to lose is the first, and we know that. The other thing, the other big possibility could be also be corporate America. Because it's not just going to be the stuff we were burning ourselves, but it's also the stuff that, you know, corporations, I'm sure, has snuck in the middle of all this stuff to get rid of. Listen, we know that they've done this on many bases where they've been basically using military bases as dumping grounds. I mean, we know there are over 150 bases stateside alone that are on the Superfund site. And we know that the EPA knows this stuff. We also know that they're not doing anything about it. They leave it up to the states.
Right.
And the states can't do anything about it because they just can't afford it. So we'll just keep business as usual, and that's it.
You know, speaking of leaving it up to the states, and this ties back into last week's broadcast and the guest that we had on, just last week, Congress denied the VA's Medical Marijuana Act.
Yeah, they actually struck it.
Yeah.
It was an amendment on another bill, and they said, no, that's not good. Get rid of it, and that was the end of it.
Coincidental how that comes out the same week that we speak to a veteran who had been seen in Lansing, Michigan, for the same issues.
Well, coincidental that, you know, we're always there. It's why can you go to the VA, and this is a question everybody needs to ask themselves. When you go to the VA, why is it that you get your painkillers, for instance, like oxycodone, for instance, and they want you to take 10 milligrams of that, but yet they're giving you in 5 milligram pills, where we know on the outside they give them to you in 10 milligram pills.
Oh, I can speak from personal experience that I've been told by the orthopedics department that there is no such thing as 10 milligram oxys.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how the hell.
Even though I've seen them with my own eyes.
Color. Exactly. And the point of the matter is, it all goes there. They buy these 5 milligrams off of a company, and they're making money, as well as the other companies making money as well. And the same thing goes for everything else that they're stopping, for instance, the medical marijuana. Do you realize if they did let medical marijuana out for the VAs, what would happen? How much money they'd be losing? because the pharmaceuticals wouldn't be able to turn around and fund them and put money into doctors' pockets. And yes, I am actually talking about government employees.
I will make the disclaimer that I only speak for myself here, but if they were to allow that, it would possibly help me sleep for the first time in 15 years.
Well, it'll possibly help a lot of people. I don't necessarily agree with it, but however, if it can help a lot of people, that's great.
Right.
But again, we're back to this again. We've got corporate America. We've got corporatism that took over the government, and we know about this many years ago. We talked about this many times. The point of the matter being is, if you turn around and you can help a veteran who's on all sorts of psychotropic, medicines and what have you, if you can help them with this medical marijuana, which is probably going to make the person less likely to be suicidal, because we know what these SSRIs are doing to everyone. We've got enough information and enough history on that, but yet they still have to make their money.
Right.
Corporate America has to make its money, and then there's the fact of, I don't believe that a government employee can take gifts or anything like that from private sources.
You're not supposed to be able to.
But yet they are, because they're actually, these pharmaceutical companies, the more that certain doctors prescribe, the more money they get as a kickback from the pharmaceutical company. It happens on the outside too.
And if they don't toe the line, they might not get paid from the insurance companies. They might not get paid from who's supposed to be paying them.
Yeah, probably not, but the point of the matter is, then how come in the States, where they do allow it, that problem's not happening?
Well, as I said last week in last week's show, I had the pleasure of being able to be a Colorado resident last year, and I got to say, the crime rate was unbelievably low. The incidence of bar fights, the incidence of suicides, everything was very low. I mean, you could just walk into a dispensary and say, I want an ounce of this or an ounce of that, and as long as you were 18, and, you know, I mean, obviously with legal responsibility also comes, you know, some other aspects. You know, you could not drive your vehicle. It was the same charge as being under the influence of alcohol, you know, and there was a lot of checks and balances, but it seemed to keep a lot of people docile.
Well, docile as it may, right now I'm talking about medical and not just full boat.
Right.
I disagree with full boat. I don't think that should happen, but anyway, that's my opinion.
However, what's the alternative? Doping people up on pills and trying different chemical combinations?
Again, medical marijuana would be fine for those people that it can help.
But I mean, just in my experience alone, I've tried several different pharmaceutical pills that, I mean, some have gone from neutral zombie to others being the worst acid trip of your life, and these are supposed to help you calm down. Where? Do they just shot in the dark, throw pills at you?
Well, that's what they do. They turn around and they say, well, everybody's different and everyone takes these things differently.
Right.
I mean, and that's how they turn around and they justify their stupid, dumb mistakes. If you actually want to call them mistakes, because I still think that they're out to get us, every single one of us. And no, I'm not a paranoid person. I'm not sitting in a corner right now. I'm right here, right in the center of a room. And anybody that wants to take their shot can take their shot at me without a problem. The situation is quite simple. They're turning around at the VA. They're trying to get rid of veterans. This is how they're getting rid of them. They're giving them the medications. They're making money from corporate America. Corporate America is making money. The shareholders are making money, and at the end of the day, who's the one that takes it up to you-know-what? Are the veterans.
Right, and the veterans' families, more importantly. I mean, I know a married couple in the state of Washington that her father was actually, in her opinion, killed by the VA. He had a severe heart condition that they knew, they noted, and they mixed up his pills while he was in for a routine check, and his heart kicked out. They mixed up his pills. Oops. How do you tell a family oops after their loved one just had a heart attack because you messed up?
You can't.
And the worst part is there's no medical malpractice when it comes to the VA because it is government.
This is something for everyone out there to ponder, and you know, later on I'm sure we will be taking phone calls. And if anyone has any idea of this, I'd like to hear it. Look, you can't go after the VA, even for negligence. However, who's to stop us for going after the doctor, or at least to their medical board, whatever state they're licensed in, to report them and at least make their life a living, a living inferno? Who's to stop us from doing that? I mean, I've actually pondered that many times. At this point, I want to go after that wonderful environmental doctor from war-related illnesses down in New Jersey. You saw what she did. I have my own dossier now that's showing that, everything she wrote was wrong, and I've got proof behind it, and actually scientific evidence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go after her.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. I really do. I hope there is a way, because some of these people need to start being held accountable for what they do. What happened to the Hippocratic Oath that doctors are supposed to take before leaving medical school to do no harm?
I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing at the whole concept. Because where there are good doctors, there's also stupid doctors. And you got to remember one thing. With the VA, you're getting a lot of that have graduated from the University of Mumbai, for Pete's sakes. You're getting those kind of doctors who are supposedly working for their licensing here in this country. Do you really think that those doctors are taught anything about Hippocratic oaths and what have you in their own countries? Absolutely not, because in most of those countries, only the rich are going to survive and the poor, well, they're unfortunately going to fall by the wayside, and that's the truth.
I don't know. I really hope that something changes really soon.
Okay, guys, we got to go to a quick update here. This is brought to you by Scott's Import Auto Repair in Warwick, Rhode Island, 60 Kent Avenue. The ad is located on veteransnewsradio.com. Just quick updates here about our Second Amendment. Firearms now top American Christmas list. The sales at all-time high. And Second Amendment news is spreading throughout the country, folks. The Second Amendment is getting more and more popular as gun grabbers call for gun control. We have a Texas sheriff urging residents to arm themselves up, Arizona sheriff, North Carolina sheriff, among other sheriffs and judges across the nation, telling their citizens to arm up in case of terrorism and to defend yourself as that. Don't forget that. But in local news here in Rhode Island, good news, Cumberland, Rhode Island, they do issue firearm permits. If you want to apply, go into the police station, ask for a firearm permit application. They no longer require a $250 fee. It is now only $40. You don't even need a reason why, just to defend yourself. That's all. No psychological exam, which is all illegal. And again, we're making big news here all over the nation, all of us who support the Second Amendment.
Well, that goes back to veterans and everything else, too, where we took an oath, and we took this oath forever. Not for the time I'm wearing my uniform. My oath stays with me until the time you put me in the ground, period. So I'm very happy about that, and hopefully people are starting to wake up.
Well, just recently, Ted Cruz has been touting for the Tennessee National Guard to be able to carry off-duty, which many of you may or may not know that for the long-standing time, National Guardsmen are not allowed to carry when they're off-duty.
Oh, my.
But since the Chattanooga shooting back this past summer, at what point are these recruiters and these National Guardsmen not allowed to defend themselves when they're on duty, too?
It's funny, we went on the Second Amendment thing, and it's funny how you're talking about Chattanooga, because you remember how many armed citizens were actually posting themselves in front of recruiting stations, and you know how they were treated.
Well, at first they were treated with warm regard and open arms, and then the official government standpoint 3 days later was to call the police and reject them from any National Guard sidewalk or recruiting station, which, if I'm not mistaken, other than the recruiting station itself, the outside sidewalk outside of that is public property.
Yes, it is. It's public domain, basically. And that's like anywhere. You might have a nice, wonderful front yard, but most of the time 11 feet of that front yard belongs to the city. That's public domain. Just make sure to cut the grass, please. Keep it nice and clean. That'll be nice. But anyway, other than that,
Speaking of the National Guard, Sal.
Well, before we go there, this news update was brought to you by Scott's Imports Auto Repair, servicing your imports with the best quality prices, the best parts, and quick service to get you on your way. It's 60 Kent Avenue, Warwick, Rhode Island. Go to veteransnewsradio.com for more information.
You got his number?
And his number is 401-738-7879. 401-738-7879. Again, located at 60 Kent Avenue, Warwick, Rhode Island. And if anybody wants to call in, we're going to go to break in about a couple of minutes. And I'll call in after the break, 401-766-1380. Toll free at 1-800-949-9674. Again, 766-1380. Or 949-800-949-9674.
All right, so you were going on something about National Guard.
Speaking of
What's
National
going on?
Guard, I mean, we're broadcasting here from historic Rhode Island, and Rhode Island's National Guard actually has had, if I'm not mistaken, either 5 or 6, the most deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan for our National Guardsmen here in Rhode Island.
Yes, they have.
The Army Chief of Staff, General Mark Milley, just announced this past week that the National Guard plans to double its training days fairly soon. The current training days, active duty training days for National Guardsmen is 39 days a year. They're looking to move to either 60 or 100. Again, General Mark Milley said that the reduction of force from 490,000 troops to 450,000 troops by 2018 is going to facilitate a more force of readiness, and they need to up the training days so that these men and women of our armed forces can now handle the extra workload.
Why?
Why are they reducing?
Why would they be doing that? Well, we know about the reducing, but why are they going to be upping the times?
Well, with the reduction of force, there's going to be more jobs put on people's backs. They're going to have to carry a double hat, triple hats in some cases.
You really think so? Do you think maybe they fear civil disobedience coming down the pike?
Could be.
I mean, it's just... Listen, they have a law about jobs in the National Guard, how they're not supposed to lose their jobs, which, by the way, those poor suckers that ended up deployed, how many of them actually did lose their jobs because they were gone for so long?
Well,
So
I mean,
that law went
that's not
nowhere.
even the original job of the National Guard. They're supposed to
it's
be
not.
deployed here.
Of
You know,
course.
they're supposed to be deployable by the
Well,
governors
National
of their
Guard,
states.
excuse me, but the National Guard is actually supposed to
right
be
in
the
the name.
state militia.
It's right in the name.
The state militia of Rhode Island, the state militia of Massachusetts, of Florida, of California, whatever you want it. Then 1908 or something like that, I guess they got federalized.
And again, with 5 or 6 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, Rhode Island being the highest state to deploy its National Guardsmen, how much more active duty training can these guys get when they're over there in the sandbox for 16 to 18 months?
I don't know, it's not making sense. There's something here that doesn't smell right to me. It's awful, awful fishy.
How
And
could you be federalized in a state militia? I mean, that doesn't sound
Well,
like
that's
copacetic.
basically, well, it's quite simple. The states basically turned around and sold themselves out because they wanted money, they needed money, and of course, you know what the federal government's going to do? Well, I got all the
I
money
mean,
right
the
here,
state
here you
militia
go.
is built for one reason, is defend us from a tyrannical government takeover.
Well, not just that, but also they're there for disasters. They're there for
Oh, absolutely,
anything
yeah.
that can happen. I mean, hurricanes. Look, I ended up working in Hurricane Sandy. I worked with a lot of these guys from the National Guard in New York. They did great work, you know.
or
I
even the
mean,
floods here in Rhode Island back in 2010.
Yeah,
Massive floods
yeah.
that you
yeah.
still see remnants of, but nobody hears about that. They just hear about Katrina's floods.
Yeah, we know that, but anyway, that's nor here nor there. They have their own agenda that they're running, and that's it. And of course, if we look at Agenda 21 with the UN, what they're going to do with the Northeast, we'll just see what happens with that, because I think they're going to try to make it a place that's going to be inhabitable.
Well, they're trying to do that in Austin right now, making it a project or model city for Agenda 21.
Well, they did the same thing here in Rhode Island, even though they're trying to fight it now.
That's Roadmap Rhode Island, for those of you know what it is.
Right.
Crazy.
Right, but anyway, that's getting a little off track with veterans issues here. So we're gonna stick to what we're here for. And as far as I'm concerned, like I was saying, we just talked about Lejeune. We talked about them not wanting to compensate,
Right.
but they will help you Because, yes, you did get sick there, but we're not going to compensate you.
No, just in case anybody hasn't seen it, some of the 15, and I'll just quickly run down this list, but if you do have any of these conditions and or symptoms, please go try to get some help for them. They have listed on the VA's website esophageal cancer, breast cancer, kidney cancer, multiple melanoma, renal toxicity, female infertility, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, lung cancer, bladder cancer, leukemia. If you have any of it, even up to miscarriages and neurobehavioral effects, if you have any of these symptoms, please don't hesitate.
By all means, go get looked at, and I hope that the VA will accept these people who aren't even part of the VA system.
And fight them. If you were at Lejeune or at any other base that you suspect toxic poisoning and you can get the documentation, please do not give up. Don't give up.
That's what they're trying to let us do. But anyway, we're going to go to break real quick here.
And we're back on the Veterans News Radio. Don't forget, we need your help, folks. PoisonVeterans.org. That's PoisonVeterans.org. You go to veteransnewsradio.com also. And we need your donations to keep the show going, to keep funding the good stuff to help veterans. And Sal here, High Speed Sal, has been helping veterans all the time. And people are even urging them to run for Congress. But again, veteransnewsradio.com. And the links for poisonveterans.org, which site Sal started here. On there is a donation page. And any amount at all goes to the funding of this operation and this radio show to helping veterans.
All right, thanks, Dan. One other thing that we need to look at as well is how the government is taking advantage of its veterans. It's something that's very close to you, in fact, Dennis, and very close to a lot of different people. Any veterans who might have been, overseas, a lot of us,
right?
At one time or another, were stationed overseas or what have you, and might have left behind, an old love or what have you, and you guys might want to get back together, or even a new one. You guys might want to get back together or what have you. There's a special visa. It's the I-131, I think.
With all the problems that have been happening in the last 2 weeks over the San Bernardino shooting and the government cracking down on the K-1 visas, I myself, you might have had a different experience, Sal, but I myself have gone to Customs and Immigration. You can check them out at usics.com, I believe, or .gov, the U.S. Customs and Immigration Service. They personally did not tell me about this. I had to look it up on my own with myself and my fiance, who is listening in from England this very evening. The I-131. Now, this is a fairly new program. Immigration and Nationality Act now authorizes U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services to expedite the application and naturalization process for current members of the U.S. Armed Forces and veterans and their spouses. Over 100,000 members of the U.S. Armed Forces have been naturalized since September of 2002, and over 10,000 have gained their U.S. citizenship in naturalization ceremonies abroad, such as the ceremony pictured above in the Iraqi palace. This is reading directly from their website. A couple things that are different with the I-131 and the parole in place as opposed to a standard K-1 fiancé visa for any civilian. The continuous residence requirement is waived. Most naturalization applicants need to wait 5 years as a permanent resident or 3 years if sponsored by a U.S. citizen before they can obtain their citizenship. That is waived for veterans and active duty military. The physical presence requirement is also waived, whereas you used to have your interviews from your local
U.S.
consulates. And the most important thing, which, again, immigration did not tell me this, and I'm wondering why, whose pockets it might have been going in, but the fees are waived as well with the I-131. Most civilians, K-1 permanent residents, would be $680. That's the filing fee and the biometrics fee, whereas for the military service members and veterans, I-131, it is only the $85 fee for the application for your biometric scans. why isn't immigration telling disabled veterans and military personnel about these options? They give you 60 options how to get your loved one into this country, and then only 2 of them are valid. Everywhere else throws up a little roadblock. It's like running through a maze. It really is. So I implore everybody out there that might have a loved one that, you know, you married overseas or you are in the process of being married, look into the I-131 for military and veterans only. This doesn't include civilians. This is for military and veterans only.
And that also goes for anyone who might be here already. You guys are together. Maybe a spouse isn't per se legal. I mean, I don't like that word legal, because I really don't think that a human being should ever be called illegal. But anyway.
Well, I think what they mean by illegal is that there's a waiting process and people that skip ahead of the line.
Yeah, I realize that, but just the same, that we can just say, you know, jumpers or something like that.
Undocumented.
Or undocumented, exactly. But anyway, they're even if they're here undocumented right now and you guys aren't married, you can also file for that.
You know, and the other thing about the I-131 is the waiting times are a lot less because your file is expedited. The current wait time, I believe, for the K-1 is 6 to 9 months to process through the U.S. consulate and through the State Department, whereas the I-131, I believe the current wait time is 6 to 8 weeks. So it makes a big difference for veterans and their spouses when you are trying to get into this country and be with the ones that give you the most comfort and your caretakers. And, you know, I mean...
Well, that's what this law is supposed to be about, actually,
Right.
Especially if you're a disabled veteran.
Right. Because that person is so close to you that they are your caretaker. I mean, they live, eat, and breathe in the same house as you. What better person to be your caretaker?
Very true for that. But anyway, so this week is Christmas. We know we've got a lot of people still deployed.
Mm-hmm.
They're far, far away from their families, and you know,
thoughts and prayers go out with them.
these are the times you really, really need to think about these people.
I mean, these people are sleeping in ditches in the sandbox. You know, they're engaged in firefights day in and day out. Sometimes they're not engaged in firefights, and they're sheer boredom.
Well, yeah, I've been there, done that. seen
But
that.
you know, while we're here enjoying things such as Black Friday and American Idol and the upcoming
Really?
Super
You do
Bowls.
that?
No, I don't do that.
Okay,
but
I was just going
I
to
see
say,
a lot
what
of
are you
people
doing
that
sitting
are.
next to me?
I see a lot of people that are. You know, the playoffs for the football games are coming up, and now the Super Bowl coming up next month. You know, please keep your thoughts and prayers with the people that allow you to sleep safe at night.
True that again. True that. Anyway, I feel we need to touch back on the VA again.
Okay.
The VA subject of, you know, how incompetent they can be, or how the Veterans Choice is actually really working. There's a lot of providers out there that haven't been paid since July.
Right. Right.
These are private doctors, private firms, private everything that pay
What?
rent,
You know,
taxes.
the other
everything
problem,
else.
and you bring that up, and I just saw an article the other day about the choice program, is that they're actually saying that there has not been much enrollment since the rollout. Now, anybody who doesn't know what the choice program is, it was part of the Affordable Care Act signed into law under Obama for veterans that live more than 40 miles away from their local treating facility to be able to choose an outside doctor, and the VA should be footing the bill.
Or if you can't get that particular appointment within 30 days, you have the choice to go on the outside.
Correct.
Or if the VA does not offer a certain type of service. So you can even just live 2 miles away, but if the VA doesn't have it or can't have it for you within 30 days, you have the right to go to use that program.
Right.
Problem is, I wonder how long that program will stick, because I keep on hearing a lot of different doctors, in fact, saying, hey, we're done. The government's not paying us. They're not keeping up to their word. Now, doesn't that sound kind of familiar, their word? Who was it that signed their name on the dotted line? And they promised that they would take care of us if something happened to us?
You know, speaking of the VA and the end of programs and the end of fundings, this just came out as of today, actually. The VA has officially announced that the Reserve Education Assistance Program is officially ending. For those of you that don't know, the Reserve Education Assistance Program, REAP as it is known, is a portion of the Montgomery GI Bill, the post 9/11 GI Bill. They are going to be ending that sometime in the next year or so, it looks, by the mandate of 2016 with Defense Authorization Act.
Wait a minute, is that just like the time when they wanted to end combat pay, even though people were in Iraq?
Right. And still are in Iraq and Afghanistan?
And that's still stopped, isn't it?
Right.
Okay, so they're basically going back on their word then.
That's what it looks like here.
Okay, so let me ask you something stupid. What happens if we went back on our word?
You probably get dropped from healthcare.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I've seen several notifications from the VA healthcare system that say if you do not keep this appointment or do not show up for this appointment, it could affect your future benefits and/or healthcare. You know, is that telling us that if we go back on something, we're cut off?
Probably.
But how many times do they call you and say your appointment was canceled while you're on the drive-in, while you're driving into the hospital? Your appointment was canceled.
Because nobody told me.
Right.
And then, of course, you're not even going to get your mileage or what have you, which is a big help, by the way, to most of us. But the point of the matter now, we're talking about these people not sticking up to what they need, what they say, what they do, what they promise. Seems to me it's the same thing. It's business like as usual in the whole bit of the political realm. And it seems to me that we just became pawns.
I lost for words. It's just how when you have the motto to help all that have come before. You know, if I'm not mistaken, the VA was set up by Abraham Lincoln to help Union veterans of the Civil War. Actually, if I could quote Abraham Lincoln, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan. How do you create something out of the ashes of a civil war, and then all of a sudden, here we are 153 years later, and we have forgotten who these people are? We've forgotten all the sacrifices of those fine few that have borne so much and done so much for the world. And not just American veterans. I mean, obviously we focus on American veterans, but there's veterans all over the world. Our allies, Britain's veterans, Australians' veterans. I mean, they don't even get health care. And some of us are told on the streets that, oh, count yourself lucky. Well, why should we count ourselves lucky?
Well, you see, in England, and I can tell you this much, they're getting the same health care like we're getting.
Right.
You see, it's socialized medicine.
Right.
VA is total socialized medicine. What they're trying to do on the outside, too, with this Affordable Care Act and everything else. Actually, if you ever noticed, you know, insurance companies never went after that Affordable Care Act because they actually wanted it. So it's all a big
they're the
fuss.
ones that help write it, so.
Well, of course they are. Not only that, you got to look at the other things. I mean, how long do you think that they wait in line to get maybe even a CAT scan or something like that out there?
You know, this is a very interesting quote that was just passed along to me. Henry Kissinger, you know, the anti-quote of what Abe Lincoln put
Are we
forward.
talking about stupid men?
Military
being
men
uniformed?
are dumb, stupid animals
Yeah.
to be used as pawns for foreign policy.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think about Henry
Interesting.
Kissinger.
Interesting.
Yeah, but that's I actually have that on my VNR page.
Dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
Now, what happens to those pawns when they come home broken and beat down and downtrodden?
They try to kill you.
Or brush you into the woodwork so that they forget about you?
or try to have you commit suicide, or try to have you go rob because you can't afford to live and all of a sudden you're a criminal, or maybe turn you into some type of terrorist organization because we keep on quoting that we're oath keepers. And you heard it, you know, I just saw the face, but you heard it. You heard what Napolitano said the first year that this administration made it in back in 2008. We don't have to worry about those people in the Middle East. And I'll say that cleanly, but anyway, we don't have to worry about them. We have to worry about our returning veterans. Seriously? And the American people actually allowed it? No one said anything? No one called for her resignation? Nothing?
It's flabbergasting. It really is. You know, we took an oath to uphold the Constitution, all of the articles of the Constitution. Whether you agree with them or not, all of them are just as important as any other one. You know, we uptook that oath for all citizens of the United States to defend their rights from all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Yeah.
And that doesn't change once you're out of the military.
Of course it doesn't, but we've been infiltrated. We have corporate America running this country now. Next is fascism.
Well, I believe that's actually Webster's definition of fascism is
Well,
government by corporation.
Well, yeah,
but
and that's next. And it starts with corporatism, just like it did in Italy back in the day. And let me tell you, my parents told me all sorts of stories about that. In fact, we lost a lot of property there because of fascism. But it starts with corporations, and then it grows right into fascism.
Well, if people, you know, I mean, like, if people don't believe in that, because people say, oh, how could they list military veterans as extremists and all that? I want people to go look this up. It's called the MIAC report. This is where the FBI and Homeland Security get their information from. It's a Missouri Information Analysis Center, them with the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's called the MIAC, M-I-A-C Strategic Report. In 2009, they called the Modern Militia Movement, and they listed all, they're basically saying, them and Homeland Security, that returning veterans are more dangerous than Al-Qaeda. This is not conspiracy. This is from the horse's mouth.
Oh,
so,
we know that. We know
what I mean?
that.
Like, I know these
We
guys-
were there. We heard that. And you know what the worst thing is? Is that everybody out there in TV land, radio land, wherever the heck they want to be, didn't pay attention. I guess they were too involved with American Idol or whatever, those islands where people live on and you can watch them. Paradise Island, whatever the heck
Survivor.
it is. Survivor, thank you. Whatever the heck it is. I can tell you one thing, those guys would never survive what we've been through. And I don't care what they put them through on TV. But anyway, look, I'm pissed. I'm pissed for a number of reasons. I know you're pissed. Who else is pissed in here?
Well, you can't help not being pissed. I mean, these guys serve your country and come home, yeah, smack in the face on the street you go.
Well, look, 2016's coming. This is going to be
Let's
the
make
year
it a
that
new
we
year.
make. We have to. We can't just sit back and just sit there and say, okay, well, hopefully they're going to fix everything, because you know what? I don't care who you're going to put into office or what have you. They're not going to do anything, because it's the people in the background, the ones that are running everything.
And if you know somebody on the inside that, you know, you're friends with at the VA that's being mistreated, you need to stand up for them too. You know, this isn't a solitary fight. We're not all out on our own anymore. You know, if we're not together, we're going to fall as individuals. And by the time they get around to us, who's going to stand up for us when everybody is already gone?
I don't know. Who?
You know, I mean, like I said, we swore an oath to the Constitution to defend every American citizen's rights and freedoms. And that also extends to your brothers and sisters that walk the halls of the VA. Some of them don't even walk. You know, I've seen some people that are even younger than I am that have no arms and no legs at our own regional VA. And it's very sad to think that these people could be getting downtrodden and stepped on just as much as the next guy.
Yeah, interesting. I got a little bit of a breaking news thing here right now. Seymour Hersh, anybody know who he is? He was U.S. Military shared intelligence with, he's saying that the U.S. shared intelligence with Assad and defied Obama. We've actually got the Joint Chiefs of Staff that has indirectly supported Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in the bid to help him defeat jihadist groups. Now, how is that making sense?
Well, I can chime in on that. So I was reading that article the other night, and I read the article was on Zero Hedge, and I'm still going through the report. But basically what's going on is there are still good people in our military and in the CIA and intelligence organizations that are fighting back against the corruption. And they couldn't go up against Obama, per se, but what they did is they used a backdoor channel to help Assad out. Because, the CIA, part of the CIA wants to overthrow the Assad regime. They've backed off on that now because of all the publicity that's coming out, like stories like this from Seymour Hersh.
Well, yeah, this actually just came out. You got yours from Zero Hedge, I got mine from Newsmax. But anyway, what about the other side of the coin where before we go in to bomb or drone something, leaflets are dropped? And it just so happens to be the ISIS who are getting these leaflets? What's going on with that?
Well, we've been supporting ISIS. You got to remember, Sal.
Okay, so we support them and then we go
we
after
fund
them.
We create them.
And then I know that we did this, but I'm just saying now we're going to go after them, but we're going to drop pamphlets to let them know, hey, we're coming to bomb you.
We didn't really go after them. It's all theater. It's all theater. It's not real. That's what's going on. They're using fear as a weapon to take away our liberties on a daily basis and to change foreign policy. That's what's going on.
That's a whole Hegelian dialect.
Yes, the Hegelian dialectic, and that's
could be
truth.
that, and that's fine, but we've got Russia there, for instance.
Well,
Russia's kicking some serious butt.
Well, what they're trying to do with Russia, it's all part of the same system. They're trying to make it look like Russia's the good guy now, so we go into the arms of Russia. They're just as evil as the United States. People got to realize that there are no more sovereign countries. They don't exist anymore. It's over. It's been over for a long time. The only thing that's been keeping us out of world government is the veto power in the UN, the big 5 nations. That's getting ready to be gone as well, Sal. So
I don't see that happening. I don't see it happening ever. And just like you said, there's a lot of people in the Department of Defense. We have a lot of good officers, a lot of good soldiers. It's not going to happen. Not
They're
here,
trying.
not now, not in my lifetime anyway. It's not going to happen.
But how about
I
this?
disagree
How about
with you
this? How about this,
100%
Al?
of the way.
How did the United Nations get ratified by the Senate? What happened to get it through? Because they tried the League of Nations after World War I, and it failed because it wasn't ratified by the U.S. So World War II happened. I believe it was 58 million people died. So they used that event and all those deaths, and that's how they got the United Nations through the Congress and the House. That's how it happened. The same thing will happen again, and there will be no veto power very soon, mark my words. When World War III finally, it's already started, but when it finally comes to the minds of the American people to actually see it, okay? People like us have been seeing it for years. It's been a proxy war going on.
World War III started right after the Second World
Look
War.
what happened in
in
Paris,
Korea
France.
and what have you.
Last week, Obama and 180 other nations signed this climate change agreement, and it violates our rights, our civil liberties, and no American, or not even politicians at that, even voted on this. It was an executive order. Obama and 2 other countries were signing global government.
Again, Dan, I'm going to disagree with you.
Well,
because
you
we
can't.
still have good people here.
I understand, but you can't disagree.
We
It's already,
still,
it's already there.
Yeah, I know it's already there, but it's not going to make it that far. Not here, anyway.
Well, they're fighting. They're trying to fight it out, but it's like the little boy putting his finger in the dike.
It's the
The
same
holes
thing
just
with
keep
Rhode
popping up.
Island that we talked about
popping
earlier.
up.
Rhode Island, the legislature's fighting it. They're finding loopholes to get around that law, and it's happening. And it's going to be the same thing with all this. I mean, he can make himself look good. I'll tell you what his whole scheme is. His whole scheme, he wants to be the Secretary General of the UN. That's what's going on.
Why does he want to be? Why does he want to be Secretary General of the UN?
Ruler of the world.
That's what's going on. There are no more countries. It's over unless, I was optimistic, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but everything I've been paying attention since 97, 98 has been coming to pass. I've seen it coming down the pike. It's here. We're living it. It's not coming. The global government is not coming. It's already here.
We've been saying it for years on other shows we've been on and hosted ourselves. And
It's not a conspiracy.
yeah, it's there in your face.
Well, it's far from a conspiracy, but anyway, this whole thing, what you guys are talking about, goes right back double circles, actually, right back to the veterans issues.
Well, of course.
It's all to do with veterans. I mean, that's exactly what it is, because we need veterans to honor the oaths and defend the homeland, because the veterans and the police, they're our last stand against our global government. And there's everything the founding fathers warned us about. George Washington's farewell address stated, "Do not get involved as an empire. Do not join alliances with other nations." Because
Eisenhower's farewell address said something almost to the same thing about corporate America and about the military-industrial complex. I mean, those aren't words we're making up. These are things that were there.
And just to see that, we're already in world government. Back in the Clinton administration, Michael New, if you never heard about who Michael New, he was, I believe he was National Guard, I think, and he refused to put on the UN baby blue helmet.
Oh, we did that. We did that in Bosnia. We refused to put that stuff
So
on.
that tells you right there.
Refused to get into the white APC that they were going to see us from 100 miles away. Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen.
So he refused. What happened to him? He got court-martialed. So we're already in world government. It's just everybody doesn't realize it yet. You still think you have liberty and freedom in the U.S.? Guess what? You don't.
I still disagree, because we most certainly do. I've been to other countries. I've seen the way things are. I've seen the way things work in other countries. We still have our freedoms here. Believe it or not, we've got more than what you think. Before you say anything, please go live in another country for at least 1 to 2 years.
No, I
And then
understand
come
that.
back and
I
talk to
understand that, but okay.
So no, I'm not going to go with that one. We still have our liberties. We still have our freedoms. As much as they're very, very...
What liberties do we have, Sal?
As much as they're very, very fragile.
Like, what do we have left?
What do we have left?
Is the Fourth Amendment alive?
We have left that we can come here and voice our opinions.
How about the Fourth Amendment? Is that still around?
Well, somewhat, yeah, it is, unless there's probable cause.
No, there's no more Fourth Amendment anymore. It's totally gone.
First
Not
Amendment's
really.
on its way out.
No, the Fourth Amendment is definitely gone. And we're going to be bringing a guest on the show. He's going to explain why
Fifth
it's
Amendment.
out.
Mm-hmm.
So his name is John Whitehead from the Rutherford Institute. You're going to love him when he comes on. He's a constitutional attorney, the best one in the country, and he's on the cusp of all this. And he will show you that the Fourth Amendment is pretty much gone in this country. The judges don't believe in it. The police don't believe in it. They're not trained that it exists anymore.
Well, they go by canon law, which they believe whatever they believe is law. And I mean, it's all corrupt, it really.
Yeah,
is.
but just the same, we know it's corrupt. We know the whole system's corrupt. We know everything's going on. But anyway, look, enough of this stuff, because too much information. That's basically what's going on. There's too much information. I doubt that all of it is 100% legit. I really do. I think that it's still turning around, and I still believe that there's still plenty of fight left in this country. American people aren't stupid, at least most of us. We might appear to be right now, but eventually people are starting to wake up.
Well, I agree with you. But
the more
the
we
time
wake
is
up,
running out.
But the time is still here, and we're waking up. I'm seeing too many of them. But anyway, listen, this is High Speed Sal. I'm going to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and I wish you to have a very, very safe one. Just watch your sixes out there, because we know what the hell's coming up around the corner. There's been a lot of chatter of crap happening. We're signing off. Have a Merry Christmas.